This is Cyber Smokehouse, and I'm Ernie.
And I'm Graeme.
Join us as we grill the minds, dig into the experience, and serve up the stories of leaders in cybersecurity.
Cyber Smokehouse is sponsored by TBD Cyber, a cybersecurity strategy consulting firm. So, in a first for the Cyber Smokehouse today, we're excited to welcome two guests to the show, a husband and wife team who together lead AigisPoint, a company building patent-backed capability to forecast cyber risk before it materializes. She is the CEO of AigisPoint, and he is a former US Army Lieutenant Colonel who's led enterprise security architecture at various companies, including Verizon, and has built security programs across highly regulated environments. Together, they are turning predictive threat intelligence from a concept into a commercial reality. Tim O'Neil, Suzanne O'Neil, welcome to the Cyber Smokehouse.
Well, thank you, Graeme. Appreciate it. It's great being here.
All right, so we like to dive right into it. Let's light the fire and crank up the heat in the smokehouse. So, Suzanne, every smokehouse runs on a different fuel. What's driving the most heat in your world right now? Like, what's the real operational pain you see in the market?
Tim is the IT specialist here, but he was telling me about how currently everybody's looking backwards. They're looking at what happened and basing their security on the past and not really looking forward. So we're taking it to that next level with predicting the future.
Well, that makes sense. Well, so Tim, elaborate, tell us more. So it sounds like you got the technical perspective. Tell us your thoughts.
I did a lot of threat modeling in my career, right? So I was always very frustrated by the fact that it's still a very static process. In fact, in my other role, I was doing a little bit of training, and it's still pretty much of a piece where you take a model and you diagram the model. So we were looking at other ways to kind of catch on the wave that is AI, and machine learning and things like that, kind of bring it into the 21st century. And so we started looking at predicting cyber threats. If you've got a whole bunch of data, there's a lot of data sources out there that publish, free, Verizon data breach investigative reports, the IC3 from the FBI, whole bunch of different CrowdStrike, for instance, does it, SOC Radar. All these things are available, but they're basically publishing last year's data this year. So everything that they have gathered over the last year, they published 2025 data in 2026. So I looked at that and said, we should be able to do better with all these tools we have now, specifically AI, machine learning, quantum computing, what have you. A lot of them are basically on both sides of the fence. AI, for instance, now is driving lots of threats, right? So, and then on our side of the fence, we're looking at AI to help defend. So that engendered some discussions, and we started into, could we use AI? Could we use things like decision logic to predict where cyber threats were going to land if we had a lot of historical data on specific types of cyber threats, like ransomware? Ransomware seems to be, holding that first or second place. I think it might have got beat out this year, but it's been increasing. And so for us to be able to predict it, if we had historical information, enough of it, we could say it's going to increase. We could say it's going to decrease or stay the same. Well, it's been a steady increase over the last 5 years. So that's a safe bet. But then how do we judge what percentage it's going to increase, right? So we put together some decision logic, patent pending, so I can't get in depth into that, but I can give you some examples. And basically, what we did is we did some testing and we back tested against that and came up with some pretty good numbers. In fact, the best percentage of accuracy we've had up to this point is 91%. So we're really thinking that might be something. I mean, you're in Vegas and you're going to make a bet and you've got a 91% surety that it's, your next card is going to be an ace and you're holding a 10. Hey, that's something you might want to bet on. So that's what we're trying to do, right? So I know I went more to the tactical picture. What do I see in the industry? I see AI. I see everybody is just on both sides of the fence is using the heck out of AI, and that is scaring a lot of people. So I see that as a major trend. I see lots of mention about quantum computing and how that's as well changing the game. So those are the two big trends that I see.
Yeah. So, Tim, you know, predicting the future is always kind of, you can be 100% right or 100% wrong, right? As you are developing these kind of capabilities, how would organizations use that? How would you see them taking that information and adjusting their security posture?
We pull in a lot of back-end data, and then on the front end, you have someone engaging with an assessment. Right now, the assessment is in terms of about 40 to 50 questions, but really, realistically, we're going to have to bump that up a little bit, to compete with, to sell to cyber insurance underwriters. They are even more thorough than we are, but some of it gets down into nitnoid details that we feel we can avoid. So anyways, you start on the front end with an assessment, and that gives you a knowledgeable security person that comes in, answers all these questions, and is able to give us a good picture of what's going on the front end of the environment. And of course, all the data is confidential and encrypted and all that, but that gives us a readout of what kind of security controls that they have in their environment. Once we know that, and we know what industry they're in, we can make some predictions based on that back-end data that we talked about. So we can give them a good read on what kind of security controls they don't have in place and what are the most likely dangers that they face. Now, this is in a strategic sense. It's not like, hey, this is going to happen to you. This is, we can make generalities about, what's happening in their industry. For instance, healthcare seems to lag in certain security controls, so we can use that to leverage a decision on what's most likely to happen if, our client is from a hospital or a health care entity.
No, totally. So basically you're looking at the kind of the security posture today, and then based on historic information, where there are gaps, you're basically saying, the probability of vulnerabilities or threats to your environment based on your current security posture and what we know about the past and what we can project about the future are likely to be in these areas. Have I got it?
I think the real value is being able to tell the client, looking at what we're predicting, this is where spending your money makes the most sense. Because that's what it all comes down to, right? Well, we know we need to do these things, but where should we spend the money first? And helping make those decisions.
Now, the other use case that, if I could just play out that we have, is cyber insurance, right? And I got the idea, called up a boss to ask for an old boss to ask if he, act as an advisor for this venture. Fareed Naji, he's a COO, I think, of ARU Insurance. But he goes, every year when we have to renew our cyber insurance policy, we have to answer all these questions on a static questionnaire, and it is laborious, and you should address that use case. So we're like, whoa, blindly flashing the obvious. Okay, let's do that too. So that's the second module that we're putting together. We're meeting with the developers tomorrow, and they should be coming up with a finished beta for us. So that's very exciting as well.
Yes. It'd be interesting your thoughts on this too. I was listening to a podcast over the weekend, and it's just fresh on top of my mind since I just listened to it. But it was Jen Easterly talking about, that what they were trying to do with CISA and the whole secure by design. And you mentioned a ransomware kind of reminded me of that. Her prediction was if we can really address the flaws that technology providers have in their software when they deploy it, in other words, create more secure by design as we code and develop tools, deploy those into our enterprises, the instances of like ransomware should go down over time. What are your thoughts on that?
Human element is infinitely the unknown, or actually the known, in any equation like that. You know, it's the human element that always is the flaw, the fly in the ointment, if you will. So I don't know that we're ever going to get to a place of secure by design with the human element involved.
Right.
So what's your big vision with the company? I mean, where do you think you're going to go with it? How big does it get? Where do you take it?
We are very small right now, very humble. But Suzanne does come from a large family, so they're all helping us out. So we have our booth attendees are all, you know, extended family members. So we do have a good group of manpower, and we do have right now onshore developers. We started with offshore. That did not go too well, but the onshore guys seem to get it. We see steady growth. We're starting the conference circuit, if you will, and we feel we're going to F2F in Phoenix on the 14th. And we really just want to get the name out there and the concept out there and just start having conversations with people. We feel that probably ITC, bigger venue, more expensive venue, and we think that we should be able to resonate with the cyber insurance group that attend. Right now, like I said, as far as I know, we've got 2 advisors in the cyber insurance field, and both of them are like, yeah, it's pretty much pen and ink when they want to enroll a new client. So if we can do it with a push of a button, I think that will add value. We haven't figured out the exact price point we want to charge, but we figure we can demonstrate a cost savings to them just in the bother and the time saved by implementing our tool. And it's open to modification, so they can add their custom questions and anything along those lines. So we feel there is nobody directly in our space. Now we might still fumble the ball, but we feel that there is real growth potential in there.
I see growth potential in some different ways, like working with, say, consultants, you know, having maybe a licensing structure where a consultant could then take what we have and use it to help their clients. So that's something that I could see a lot of growth with potentially, as well as maybe potential integrations with various software programs as a possibility, and even someday building our own consulting team. You know, if we're telling you this is what you need to do, well, now let's tell them how to do it. A company that maybe doesn't have a huge IT department could work with us and help make their business more secure.
Well, very cool. I'll tell you, it's been a fun journey for Graeme and I, and we also found that our hypothesis that we went in with wasn't necessarily what ended up being true, but it's worked out, and we pivoted fast, and we wish you luck in that journey. Well, so
Pivoting, it's key.
yeah, pivot fast. Yeah, that's the fun part. Well, so Tim, you mentioned a couple other technologies in the beginning that I'm just curious about. So, are there other things, not necessarily tied to the company, but more industry wide, that you're concerned about, or that you think are just things we need to think about from a security perspective? Like you brought up quantum. Like, is that something that you're worried about, or is it it'll be a problem later? And we get very broad perspectives on this. So maybe quantum, AI, is it overhyped? What do you think about the technology that's out there that's coming down the pike?
Well, I mean, the hype cycle, as Gardner terms it, no, I don't think it's overhyped at all. I think that we'll get a handle on it. I mean, it's just like every other struggle that we go through in tech. Eventually we get a handle on it. I mean, you can start at arguably the first hackers and how we dealt with that. I mean, what is it? The book, The Cuckoo's Nest, whatever, the first book about hacking, and how it basically talked about, this guy getting into systems, and the other guy was just doing research, and he, basically discovered a hacker that was looting funds, right? And how that came about, and just the initial, forays in hacking, and how we eventually learned how to get a handle on that. I mean, I remember walking into a concern owned by the airlines the first day, and they were getting hit with a distributed denial of service attack. At the time, nobody knew really what those were. I mean, nobody outside of a very small community. And, getting a handle on that the first couple of days of work, and then getting hit with MS Blaster after that, and Welky, a few days later. I know I might be going off on a tangent, but it's like, I want to make the point that anything that happens in tech and specific in cyber, first hits us like a D-Day landing, and then eventually you get a handle on it, and you figure out a solution to it. I think AI is the same thing, but the cycle is a lot faster, right? I mean, it used to be, when you had like worms in the wild, okay, it happened and it exploited lots of vulnerabilities, and then you did some patching, and then, you were immune to that specific exploit, and then something else came along, and you went through the same cycle. Well, with AI, now AI is on both sides of the street. You've got AI that's developing phishing emails, right? And it's automating the processes. So what used to happen is there'd be some changes, maybe, you'd notice that a phishing email had multiple misspellings and didn't quite make sense and all that. Well, now those errors are gone, and the phishing email becomes a lot more effective because it becomes more believable, and they're doing things faster and at scale. So the exploits are going to be more wide-ranging and have greater impact. So I think it's a matter of, there are all these things out there. They hit hard, and then it's our reaction to it and how we get a handle on it. So now we've got AI inside the wall. We're using that to do auditing, and basically safeguarding the network. So, eventually, the hype cycle dies down, and, we rise to the fight and are able to defeat these things. That's just my micro view of things, but that's basically what I've experienced.
I would say every problem has a solution. You just got to figure it out. And at least we know about it, right? It's something that we can be forward looking at because we know that this is coming. So let's figure it out before it gets here.
Yeah. And to pitch off that too, it's like you look at OWASP in the top 10 vulnerabilities. There has been very little change in that, right? It stayed static for, 15 years. I think the first one or two of their top 10 was like SQL injection. SQL, what was that? Going back to,
Oh man, that was a long bit to go back. SQL injections, cross-site scripting, all that stuff, right? It was, those vulnerabilities have been around for decades.
Yeah, so it's like it stayed that way, static, and now I think things are going to change with the injection of AI. Things are going to change much faster, and we just have to get ahead of it.
Well, I'm interested for a question for both of you. Maybe I'll ask you first, Suzanne. Is how do you stay sharp? How do you stay up to date with what's going on? What do you attend conferences? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you read? When do you go to resources?
Reading is huge. I survive because I read, right? Because anytime something comes up that I'm curious about or that I have any problem, that's where you start. And internet is useful, although you got to be really careful about that. Sometimes information's what it looks like, but I think to me, reading is the biggest thing.
What about you, Tim?
I have to for my work, right? So my day time job, if you will. So we're all involved in AI, and I'm developing a security architecture framework, which is something that the company has not had. So I do a lot of reading on the job, and on the side, because we're trying to stand up a newer version of our strategic predictive threat intelligence. I'm doing a lot of reading of threat intel reports, from Verizon, from CrowdStrike, what have you. So it just helps me just prepare the data for ingestion and then run logic against it. So fun reading.
I wish I had time to do more reading. I've got a 10 and a 7-year-old, so it's mostly I get a little time to watch master's classes on like the treadmill or on airplanes. That's all I get. But that's great. You guys are able to do that. So hey, I want to change gears a little bit on you guys and just talk about your leadership style. I mean, I realize the company you're building, you're still small now, but eventually you're going to scale and you're going to have a bigger team. As we hope you get bigger. But knowing your backgrounds, I'm sure you've had teams in the past, and just want to know about how you build teams and how you've led. So Suzanne, I want to start with you. So what's one thing that you've done as a leader that you didn't see modeled for you, and that's something you had to figure out for yourself?
I'm going to say as a leader, and I do actually have a team that I lead currently at a part-time job. And I tell my team, nobody gets in trouble here. I often have people come and say, oh, I don't want to get in trouble, or I didn't want to get her in trouble. And I think, no, nobody gets in trouble here. Sometimes things happen, people make mistakes. We learn from it and we move forward. And when we make a mistake and we learn from it, not only should we learn from it, but everybody should learn from it. So if I make a mistake, I'm going to tell everybody I made a mistake. And I'm going to say, this is what I learned, and this is what I want you to learn, so that we can all grow and become better. And that my team has responded really well to that. They've come to know, and it's to the point, like, sometimes I'll bring something up where something happened, a mistake was made, and I'll hide who did it, but I'll bring it forward to the whole team and say, hey, this is what we can all learn from. And my people will be like, oh, no, that was me. I did that. So to the point, they're willing to just jump up and admit, yeah, I made that mistake. And I think we've developed like a closer knit team. Everybody works together well. We went through a rough patch recently, but we came through it because of that attitude, because everybody could just understand and realize that we're all in this together to have, there's one thing that we all want to do, and it doesn't matter. Nobody gets in trouble. Just learn from it and move forward and do better.
Yeah, I think the important part is the intent, right? As long as nobody's being malicious and they're making decisions with what the data they have in front of them and they're making the best decision. And then to your point, you learn from it, right? But if someone's being malicious, that's another thing, or lazy or something like that. So that's a good lesson. I appreciate that. All right. So in building those teams, how about recruiting? Is there something special that you have when it comes to recruiting for talent, or that you look for to make sure you're assembling the right team?
I want someone who is hungry, eager. When I think back to when I first got my first job in IT, I really was hungry, wanted to learn, wanted something better for myself and my family. So somebody who's just like wanting to grab a hold of it. I've had a couple people that we've talked to recently about potential positions, and I just really felt like I didn't see a drive, and to me, I want to see some drive. I want to see somebody who's like, hey, I'll take that on. Yeah, let me do that. Hey, I don't know about that, but let me do some research and learn, and so that we can figure it out and make it happen.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing I would look for.
Yeah. You don't have to know everything, but you need the motivation and the willingness to learn. That makes sense. I got it. All right, Tim. Well, I'll throw one at you, and I got to use the Smokehouse theme here. So we like to say, great leaders are like great pit masters. So you have to know when to tend the fire and when to leave it alone. Point being is you have to find the right balance. So when do you need to know when to step in and versus trusting your team to let them manage? So when do you let your team just go figure it out? When you need to say, wait a minute, this is getting crazy. You need to step in and help.
Oh, well, it's not going to be that. I'm gonna give you the whole version of my evolution in leadership, right? So I started out as, all right, well, we'll get back to that point. When do you step in? But I just want to give you a little background. When I first became a leader, it was commissioned officer. And I lived in the world of black and white. So I did that for a long time and figured out, hey, that's not necessarily, there's nuances to the situation, right? So that helped me. And when I got off active duty and started in tech, and I started to realize, hey, can't just be this, onerous, overbearing, dictatorial type leader, although they exist in the tech world as well. So I kind of learned that, I learned some nuances. So I've arrived at the proposition that you set the parameters, you set the goals, you set the, the sidelines, what's off limits and what's not. You give a time frame, a glide path, what have you, roadmap, and then you check in with them on occasion. Otherwise, you leave them alone unless there's a problem. And then hopefully you arrive at the goal, on target. So, I mean, that's the way I look at it. And I base everything on the maturity of the team. Now in tech, the guys I work with are very mature and they've been around for a long time. Of course, there's a few that still are kind of, curmudgeonly, if you will, but they normally know how to carry out a task or a complex objective. So normally you don't have to give them a whole lot other than that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm interested, Tim, with your background in the military and, having worked in both that kind of environment as well as, in the enterprise environment. How do you approach translating technical risks into something that an executive team can understand?
I always put it in dollars and cents. I basically say, I always hear these horror stories. I heard a horror story from my boss. They got the guy that they thought was a technical genius, and they put him in front of an executive, and it was the biggest disaster they ever could have imagined, right? So you have to boil things down into what they're worried about. So executives worry more or less about dollars and cents more than, what firewall we have, but they do worry about risk. So if you can put them in those two terms, and tie them together, right? GDPR, what is the biggest fine that they can lay on you? I think it's like 22 million euros. So if you put risk in terms of how much you can be fined, they get it. And I've used that for years. It's always been.
Yep, the money talking about them, that's the language of business, right? So you can tie the business impact in dollars. Yeah, absolutely. And then, Suzanne, from your perspective as, a CEO and, you're dealing with a lot of these technical people, I mean, how do you receive that when they have to translate stuff to you? I mean, how does that feel? And do you think that works well?
Absolutely. To me, I think that's a big part of our business model. You got to put it in the dollars and cents. It's where we're at right now. You got to spend money in order to get an outcome, and we've had to sit down and make some decisions. And where do we want to put this? Where do we want to spend this? And you've got to really weigh out, not just like, you don't necessarily want to go with the least expensive route, right? Because you've got to weigh out what's the cost going to be or what's the benefit going to be. And so that's I would agree with. Yeah.
I think that's one of the hardest. I mean, I think that's one of the hardest jobs of, leaders and people in executive roles is, that's really why they're paying you, is to work out where you're going to place those bets, because you can't spend money on everything. So, how do you prioritize?
Yeah.
How do you prioritize in a way that you don't expose the organization to undue risk, right? So you've got this constant, like, how do we innovate? How do we manage risk? How do we manage those? Where do we make our bets? I think that's that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
We've actually had conversations where we said, can we afford to do this? We can't afford not to, was the answer. Like, yeah, we have to, if we're going to make,
one of our board members going, where's the insurance? We need insurance. Errors and emissions, because we're making some promises out there, implied promises.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the future and where you're going. And so, Suzanne, as you look out, say, over the next 6 to 12 months, what does progress look like for Aegis? What would you like to see as outcomes over the next 6 to 12 months?
12 months, I would like, as you know, we're extremely new. We have 0 customers right now. So in 6 to 12 months, I would really like to be at a place where we've had some people using our product, finding, a great benefit to it, and be at a point where we are growing that customer base.
Yeah, I think that's always the big challenge, right? Is getting those first few customers. In fact, we were very fortunate when we started. We got a customer straight away, and Ernie sent me they always say you should frame the first dollar of revenue, right? So we actually he sent me a frame, and he's got one too of our first dollar of revenue. So
There was nothing funnier. I go to the bank teller and I'm like, yeah, I'd like to withdraw $2. She looks at me. She's like, what are you doing? I was like, I need the $2 to frame.
sorry, Tim, you going to say something?
Well, I think that I really think our most lucrative and quickest take is going to be with cyber insurance. We're going to this conference in Phoenix, and it's mostly state security folks, and I think the lead time there to get inside the walls is going to be a lot longer. I think once cyber insurers see what we're going to offer, it's the matter of finding the right price point that will resonate with them. Because right now they're doing it for free, but they're kind of inking their questionnaires to their clients, and that has got to be a pain point. But who's absorbing the pain? It's the clients of the cyber insurers. So I guess finding the right price point that'll make sense for everybody is where we can best have him.
Yeah, and I think everything I've read about the cyber insurance industry is that they're losing a lot of money, right? So anything you can do to help focus, reduce their risk in terms of payouts would be I think welcomed.
Agreed.
So Tim, from your perspective, as you're kind of building out the technical side of the business, what's the big engineering architecture challenge that's sitting in front of you over the next 6 to 12 months?
I think we're going to go through another proof that we can do what we say we can do. I mean, that's the money. That to me is where we're going to resonate. If we can, I mean, the first testing we did, we came out with some really good percentages, and of course, it's back testing. So it's been, another release of the major data sources we use. So we're going to go back and do some testing to make sure that we have good numbers. And building out the systems really is the easy part. I mean, we've got great contract developers, and they're super at getting things done. They're using AI to develop, of course. Finding hosting, we've got a good hosting platform with Cloudflare, where we need to put security around it, because who wants to contract with a security company that doesn't have good security? So we're wrestling with security controls like MFA and things like that. But those are minor issues. I think testing the data to make sure we can predict what we say we can predict is ultimate to our core mission.
Yeah.
I have a question on the coding side. I mean, I see different perspectives on the AI coding. I think some people think it's amazing because you can get to proof of concept, minimum viable product very quickly. But when it gets to true, secure production code, people are nervous because it can be sloppy. You don't really know what's in there. I mean, what's your perspective on that? What are you seeing?
Well, we're definitely insisting they do the due diligence to make sure that is not the case. And like I said, we do have, that we will have the code vetted. Of course. Right now, it's all about getting an MVP in place, right? And now actually 2 MVPs, and getting, and everybody says you go in the investor capital world, which to me, don't get me started on that. Although if you need some time, I've got some comment on that. But finding investors that say, hey, you need an MVP. Okay. So we've got 2 MVPs. and then next steps. Yeah, we'll vet the code and we'll get it as secure as possible before we're offering it for sale. And the bottom line is you're right. I mean, AI I was listening to a conversation today where somebody was using AI to negotiate the sale of a bread loaf, and the guy on the other end was in on it. And the guy asking AI to do the transaction said, I have $5. The other end of the transaction, the guy says, well, I can sell it to you for $10,000. And the AI was going back and forth like it was like a typical normal negotiation. And the best he could get the guy down to was $500. He purchased the loaf of bread at $500. The point being, AI is full of flaws. So yeah, you definitely have to be that human being in charge of it, Sorry, I hope that addresses your question.
It does.
All right. So if you had to make one bold prediction about where cybersecurity is headed, say over the next 5 years, what would it be?
Well, we've been talking about AI, so I think it's going to be, I think jobs will be eliminated as the rudimentary job functions that are done at the SOC level and the data analysis level are now done by AI. However, I think on the other side of the street, as AI becomes more used in threat generation, then other careers or occupations will come into place. I mean, a while ago there was no such thing as a threat hunter, right? And that became a thing. So I think as AI evolves on the dark side of the street, I think it's going to engender new occupations on the white side of the street. I guess generalization, but that's what comes to mind right now.
What about you, Suzanne? Any predictions? So where we're headed over the next 5 years?
I think what Tim said makes a lot of sense. And yeah, everybody says, oh, AI is the future, and it is. However, you got to have the human factor. I love the loaf of bread story because I think that highlights it really. Like, you've got to have the human factor to say, no, this isn't right. Somebody who actually can think original thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I get that, where some things are going to go away, but other positions will open, other doors will be opened up to us.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so we've been in the fire for a while, and we want to step back from the pit and learn more from the people behind the tongs, i.e., we want to learn more about you guys. So, we spend a lot of time going down the technical path. So we'd really like to learn your guys' origin stories of just how you got into cybersecurity. So maybe Tim, start with you. I'm assuming, in kindergarten you weren't thinking cybersecurity, and most of us that are getting older, the story is we fell into it somehow. What was your path into cybersecurity?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I wish I had thought about it in kindergarten. Graduated from Northeastern, which is a great college with a great IT program, but I wasn't in it. I studied criminal justice I thought I was going to follow my father into, federal. He was a treasury agent. Thought I was going to follow this. Got a couple offers, to go in the FBI, but one offer to go in the FBI. I think I applied for other positions, but ended up going in the Army and commissioned as a MP, and spent a lot of time kicking around, in the MP Corps in different places, Panama, Korea. I went into civil affairs at Fort Bragg, so spent about 4 years there doing missions, mostly in Latin America. Picked up some Spanish, went to airborne school, but I took a separation incentive to get out. They were downsizing. And then I was in the reserves, and there was an opportunity to go to the Army Security School, IT Security School, which was basically, I went to the SANS Cyber Essentials. It was basically loosely based on SANS Cyber Essentials, and then got a job in IT security because computers had always vexed me. And so did a couple of turns as a information security manager in Silicon Valley. Then I ended up working for an aviation firm. Actually, it's a firm owned by the major airlines. Then had a directorship down in Houston for HCC Insurance, and then got into the IT architecture field, IT security architecture, and IT architecture. And that's kind of where I've been pigeonholed for a while. So been doing that for about the last 15 years.
Okay, so a little more traditional path. The Army kind of gave you some training to get there. A little bit more. How about you, Suzanne? What was your path?
Probably not quite so traditional. I really did a great job of digging myself into a nice hole. Had 4 kids before I was 21. So when most people were, going to college and things like that, I was taking care of kids and just being a mom and surviving. And I found myself in food service is a great way to make money when you got a big family to support and no education. So customer service, that's what I did. And I wanted more. I wanted to just have a better life for me and my family and be a good example. So I had heard about a position with a dental software company. And I went and applied. I mailed them an application. I called. They wanted me to email them an application, but I didn't even have a computer. So I had my best friend email it. Called, ended up hand delivering. I mean, I just kept badgering them until they hired me. And I told them, I said, hey, I really don't know anything about technology, but I can learn whatever you want to teach me. And so I got my foot in the door. I started out, in a very basic, low-level role, just kept learning more, growing more. Got to the point where I was doing digital imaging support. I could disassemble a digital pan and reassemble it. Other things, along those lines, got into training and really used my customer service skill as a way of getting into that, because one thing that you guys may know is a lot of IT people, when they talk, the end user's eyes glaze over. They don't understand what they're talking about. And I had the ability to, I could go to our development team or I could go to our upper level support people, get an answer, and then go back to the end user and explain it in a way that made sense to them. And that was great. So that's how I really got into IT and technology. And really and cybersecurity is Tim, he's got that part down. Where I'm coming in is more from the customer service standpoint and what I can do to help them. And we talked about management, personnel management, another area that I'm strong with. And so I think when you have a company, you need both sides. You need the brilliant person, which is Tim, and then you need the face.
Right, you need the front office, the back office. I'm the back office.
I mean, we're just meeting you guys, and Suzanne, you're clearly the more friendly one, so I'm not going to dispute that. It's a good yin and yang. No, but I do have to ask a question. I mean, working together and husband and wife must have a unique dynamic, and I'm not going to lie, I couldn't work with my wife. Hopefully she's not listening to this podcast. So, I mean, how does it work? It seems to work well.
Well, you notice we're not in the same office, right? You notice that she is in the office that sits in the corner of the gym, and I'm in the office up in the house. So we decided a long time ago that we can't share an office.
So that's the key. Separate sides of the house.
Yeah. We do text each other during the day. But our first collaboration was on a house, so we have a short-term rental, and she, we fell into different roles. And yeah, she's the one that interfaces with the clients and does a great job, and I'm kind of the person that fixes plumbing if it goes down or changes filters or, puts the pellets in the water softener, and does the backyard maintenance. So
I think the key is respecting one another for their strengths. I think my husband is a brilliant person, and I really, when he asked me, like, are we crazy? Should we be doing this? And I said, I have every faith that your idea is going to go, that we are going to make this happen, and we can do this. So and that's because I respect him for what he knows and what he does. And he's always coming up with great ideas. So, and then I think in turn, he respects me for my strengths. And that's the thing. Like with any partnership, you have to respect one another.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you would regret it if you didn't give it a go. So I think you'll be glad that you did it. So, all right, one other question on this path: if there's young people that are listening to this, early professionals, and you had to give them advice in coming up in cybersecurity, what would you tell them?
The sooner the better. And well, I mean, cybersecurity generally, to me, my evolution was not, well, for a short time it was from regular IT, but learn the underlying concepts of IT before you want to delve into cyber. I don't know if they're co-joined now. When I was, growing up, there was some very distinct, cyber was very new. And the regular field of IT was traditional way that you kind of gravitated from IT into cybersecurity. But now people coming directly into cyber, make sure you understand, the nuances of the underlying IT.
I personally would say be hungry. Know like that you've got to get out there. Nobody's going to just hand you something. You've got to be willing to go out there and work for it. And I think another important thing is you don't know what you don't know. So look for really good mentors. Look for people who can advise you, not even always necessarily in a technical sense, but even in an interpersonal sense. Like have multiple mentors. Maybe this person has, the technical knowledge and can help me grow there, but this other person maybe can help me learn better how to deal with people, how to talk to people. Those are the things I would suggest.
Yeah, that's great advice, from both you guys. The passion and the drive and the having mentors, and yeah, awesome. All right, so switching gears, we can't leave the show here and without talking about the Smokehouse, and that means different things to different people. So let me start with Suzanne. So, are you an indoor or outdoor cook?
But
So tell me, we obviously this is the Cyber Smokehouse, so we're very interested in the outdoor cooking. But would you like to share? Are you a smoker? Do you like smoking, grilling? What's your favorite outdoor cooking style?
so there was one time we were having somebody over, and I thought that this individual would really enjoy some smoked salmon. And we have this fabulous smoker. So I was like, I am going to make this smoked salmon. And it came out unexpected.
Was it salmon jerky? I think it was salmon jerky.
It was kind of like salmon chunks. It was really good. It had a really good flavor.
That sounds good.
I'm a little bit more of a grilling person. I love to grill a steak. And Tim is really good with smoking. I tell you what, he's made some chicken wings.
Well, we got to tell you, she's perfect at making what we call the crack burger. Actually, it's called that in general terminology, right? So I don't know if you want to talk about that, but it's probably the best hamburger I've ever had.
Well, you got to tell us what's the crack burger.
What's the crack burger?
To me, it's you integrate cheese with the burger, bacon, sour cream, jalapeno, onion, and just cook it as a regular burger. But the recipes are out there. I mean, but that's basically it. It's just integrating all the different components that you normally put on top of a burger in the burger itself.
Cream cheese in the burger.
Cream cheese. Okay. That sounds good.
Now, she made poppers this weekend she grows jalapeno peppers. And boy, that, I needed a beer to wash that one down because it's so hot. I mean, she grows some hot peppers. But we've got a nice little garden out back. We've got chickens and 3 dogs, so it's almost like a farm.
So Tim, what's your favorite? I hear you chicken wings. Is that the go-to or?
Well, chicken wings I've done before. We just did ribs the other night, and they came out really good. So I use Rectech is my grill. So it's a grill / smoker pellet grill. And it's got a smoker box that I never use because, in the main compartment, you're smoking anyways. It's just a smaller box, but never gets used because the temperature just never really gets high enough. But if I smoke it in the main compartment, if you will, then I get really good smoke. I keep it low and slow. The ribs, I did it about 180 for, say, the 3-2-1 formula, right? Where you do, you basically spice it or do a rub on it, and then put it on in the main compartment for 3 hours. Then you cover it for 2 hours. Then you open it up and just put it back on the grill, and it's got, the ribs will fall apart. I mean, fall off the bone meat. And so that's what I always aspire to. Sometimes you don't get there. This time, I think we didn't have enough time to do it that way, but it still came out really. And Rectech makes a line of rubs. It's really good. I think we used Dirty Girl on one, and I can't remember the other name of the rub, but fantastic products. Made in Georgia.
Just down the road from me. Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm sorry, you're in Georgia?
I'm in Georgia, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've got a Traeger. I'm a Traeger person, but I know a lot of friends that have got Rectechs. And
all right, so the guy that got me into that is Paul Pelletieri. He's the director at Splunk, and he's one of our advisors. But he's a big grill guy, so I don't know if you want to interview him. But he's a big Rectech fan.
Yeah, that sounds great. Actually, I'll tell you a story about the ribs. Last weekend, I just for giggles, I did the 3-2-1 method, but I reversed it. So I actually did the 3 hours of covered, and then 2 hours uncovered, and then ribs. And they turned out really good. So I just wanted to try doing it the other way around. So I wrapped them in foil and put beer and for 3 hours, and they were great.
Yeah, I usually use apple juice. Suzanne's got a gluten issue, so I can't use beer. But in fact, we were just down in Honduras, and we found out that the beer down there does not have, has wheat that is free of gluten, and so she was able to drink beer.
Wow. Okay.
Benefit of being in Honduras. But we just got back from a scuba trip, not to take this off on a tangent. So Suzanne had a few dives down there, and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, we to stay true to Graeme is smoking. I am actually currently smoking ribs right now. So my daughter's graduating from elementary school, and she got to pick the meal. So she wanted me to make ribs. So that is actually on the smoker as we speak.
Right, ready or something else?
Baby back. I'm doing 3-2-1. So as soon as we're done recording podcasts, I'm gonna go wrap them. Then we go do graduation, and then hopefully they're ready when we get off there.
Yeah.
So anyway, speaking of wrapping, before we wrap, literally. Before I go wrap these things, if people want to find you guys and they want to get a demo of the product and learn more, where should they find you?
Well, AigisPoint.net is our current website, and you can request to speak to us on. There's a contact form. The application resides on AigisPoint.com, so you can go there and request access. It's AIGISPOINT and .net and .com. So either one of those will get our attention. Yeah, we'd be happy to set something up for anybody that's interested.
Email?
Same thing. Tim O'Neil at AigisPoint.net. Suzanne's still got a real estate email. We're gonna have to fix.
Well, Tim and Suzanne, it's been a great pleasure to have you guys on. Our first couple that we've had on the Smokehouse here. So thank you for bringing your honesty and your experience, and I think it's really interesting getting different perspectives at the same time. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having us on. We really appreciate the boost in publicity, and it was a really nice experience.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and to everyone that's listening, if you've got something out of today's conversation, it's made you think or made you laugh, tell someone about it. That's how we grow our community. Subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you on the next round of the Cyber Smokehouse.
And that wraps another episode. Thank you for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at cybersmokehouse.com. Cyber Smokehouse is sponsored by TBD Cyber, a cybersecurity strategy consulting firm.
TBD Cyber works with organizations to assess their security program, develop and implement security initiatives, and optimize their security investments. We work in areas as broad as data security, risk management, cyber resilience, and security architecture. Our clients value us for our extensive expertise and independent advice, which is why we do not sell security products or deliver managed security services. If you want to work with a trusted advisor, we can help. You can learn more at tbdcyber.com. We'll see you on the next one.